Hey, business building warrior, welcome to the weekend update. If you're listening to this episode right when it came out, it's Saturday. And what we like to do on Saturdays is still work. A lot of us work 6 days and rest one. Hey, good enough for God, good enough for us. That's the way He created the whole universe, right? So we're working on a Saturday, sure, but why not take along a great update, a podcast episode that we've gone back and reviewed from maybe 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months ago. We've got hundreds of great interviews. So what we do on the weekends is we go back, we find those great episodes that maybe slipped past your radar, or some of those great insights and tips and strategies from some of the successful students, and just kind of break it down into little easily digested nuggets for your weekend update. So that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to dive into that in just a moment after I make a couple of announcements. First, if you haven't got a free copy yet of the brand new, all new, our 11th update of the Silent Sales Machine book. This is the book that started this podcast. It started our community, the 73,000 members of our free Facebook group, our incredible events. It all started because I sat down about 20 years ago and wrote a book over a weekend. It was actually just a PDF report at the time, and it took off. And it started this incredible movement that is now thousands of business building warriors all over the world. It wasn't because of anything that I did. I was just making some observations and sharing what others had taught me. I kind of compiled the information into one place with the premise of, hey, you can use the internet to grow the business of your dreams. And here's the rules I'm kind of discovering. Here's some of the things you should avoid, I was discovering. And there's a group of us, we just kind of compiled this information and kept learning new things. Well, I've updated it, and the 11th update is now available. All the stuff you should avoid, the legitimate opportunities that are available to you, the mindset that's required in order to tackle these opportunities, a lot of very specific strategic advice on using the internet to launch and grow the business of your dreams, multiple income streams, using the internet creatively. That's the book. So go to silentsalesmachine.com and you can see more about it. Or you can text the word free, that's FREE, to this phone number. It'll be in the show notes as well today. The phone number is 507-800-0090. Now, if you happen to live outside the United States or Canada, that might not work for you. So just email our support team. There's a link at silentjim.com and say, hey, I heard Jim make that free offer. Assuming the free offer is still around, which it will expire at some point. But now, as we're launching the book, we wanted to give it away for free. That's a great opportunity for you. So there's that. And I also want to remind you, if you're new around here, this podcast is the supporting podcast for the leading Amazon seller training in the industry. I'm talking about the Proven Amazon course at provenamazoncourse.com. It's the longest running Amazon seller training in the industry, with more success stories than any other, a bigger support team. There's about 100 of us that support that course. All kinds of creative modules for every level of Amazon seller experience. If you know nothing about Amazon, you know nothing about e-commerce, we got you. If you've already got a $50,000, $100,000, $1 million a month business, there's ideas in there I guarantee you have never been exposed to that could improve your business. So for $39 a month, provenamazoncourse.com gets you a library of content that grows with you. We believe in just-in-time education, which means right when you need it, we got that next thing that you need, and it's in there. And then we've got our free Facebook group support community at silentjim.com that's there to help you as well if you want to check that out. So that's the introduction for this weekend update. Let's go find out what the team has put together for us today. Enjoy this episode. We'll have brand new episodes for you starting at the beginning of the week, so don't miss those. Hey, have a great weekend. God bless you, warrior. Let's jump into the content. So Heather, welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio.
Thanks, Jim. It's great to be here. Thanks for taking time with me today.
Here. Oh, outstanding. I really appreciate your time. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more of your story. I read a little bio, but I don't know many details. So let's dive in.
Sure. Yeah. Originally, my first experience with e-commerce, and this will certainly age me, but back in 1998, I discovered eBay, and that was the hot thing at the time. And It was amazing to me that, anything around the house I could auction, start it for 99 cents, and then eagerly await Sunday night and see the auctions closing. And It was so long ago that, people sent you cash and money orders in the mail, and there wasn't even PayPal at that point in time.
I
So
totally remember those days. And so you remember
yeah.
like when PayPal was paying the $5 for referrals. Did you ever make any money on that? I made a few bucks referring people to PayPal.
Yeah, I don't recall that, but I remember it was very exciting when it came out because it was a easy way to get payment quicker. So
Yeah. I mean, just to hang in that territory for just a moment. I mean, I remember having to talk my buying customers into the fact that, yeah, you can trust this, it works. And even when people started using credit cards online, it was like they're all nervous, like, is this legitimate? Am I going to get my identity stolen by buying something online? It was
yes.
crazy, those early pioneer days, right?
Yeah, it was. And I think about now how we source today versus then. I would just go to a garage sale on Saturday and you're blind. You can't look up comps until you get home. You're just blind. And so you're making, gut
Educated
decisions.
guesses. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So yeah. So it was a great fun hobby. And I did that for a few years. And then as my career progressed, then, kind of got away from that. I was, in and out of eBay over the years, but not serious about it until recent years. I did get back into it, but and then progressed with a long career in manufacturing operations. So
Okay.
started out, in an engineering role, moved over into the manufacturing side, and I've ran multiple manufacturing plants as a plant manager,
Wow.
and then also held continuous improvement roles. So definitely that
Okay.
preparation of running a plant is, very similar to running your own business.
I come from that background. I don't know if you're aware, if you've ever heard me mention it before, like the whole Six Sigma, and Edward Deming is one of my heroes, and
Mhm.
the whole constant improving processes. I had a statistics was my minor in college, and of all the time I wasted learning stuff that was completely irrelevant to the real world, actually the stuff I picked up with statistics and the continuous improvement, those kind of concepts have really kind of shaped my leadership style and the way I run a business as well. If you can't improve a process unless you're tracking the numbers for that process, right? That was ingrained into me. Know the numbers, and to this day, that serves our community well. I think because it's one of the core messages we, you know, pound into people: is know your numbers. So
Yeah,
that kind of
definitely.
that was planted in me from that background of continuous improvement.
Yeah, I agree. And I discovered continuous improvement a little late in my college journey. I wish I would have learned about it sooner because I would
Right.
have probably changed my major. But then when I got into my career, learned about Six Sigma. But
Mhm.
definitely what gets measured gets improved. So I think as Amazon sellers, for instance, if you want your sales to increase, how are you going to measure the inputs to that? So for me, that's my spending. Am I spending enough each week, each month to make sure that I'm achieving those sales goals that I have?
Yeah, it really can be that simple. I mean, I've heard many successful sellers in our community say, if I want to make $1,000 profit,
Mhm.
I go spend $1,000.
Mhm.
It's that simple. I'm going to get paid about a month from now. And that's
Yeah.
just, you can kind of start to, and that's an oversimplification. But once you're good at finding the right inventory, that's kind of about right. I'm going to spend $1,000 on stuff that's going to sell for 3,000, and by the time all the fees and expenses come out of that, I've paid for my inventory. There's an extra 1,000 still sitting there.
Mhm.
That's kind of the game. And a lot of people know, who was it that said one time, like, I'm not coming home till I spend $1,000. That's what I do. I go out and I spend 1,000 on good inventory. I'm not coming home till it's done. Some days it's 2 hours, some days it's 8. But it's kind of a neat approach.
Yeah, I agree. I
But yeah,
agree.
please continue your story. I could nerd off into that land, bringing back memories. I haven't mentioned names like Deming and Duran in years, so it's someone else who recognizes kind of those heroes of that movement. It's interesting.
Yeah, sometime we'll have to have a good long conversation on that. And
Absolutely,
yeah,
that really kind of shaped my leadership.
yeah, and you know, reading and learning about those guys, and then the Toyota production system, and that led me into lean manufacturing,
Mhm.
and which paired well with my manufacturing career. So I've always got a lot of enjoyment about with working in manufacturing. You're making a widget that you sell to somebody. So there's a lot of parallels, even though I'm just purchasing the widget to sell to somebody, and then building the team. And then how do you get better and better and better and use those continuous improvement techniques?
Yeah, so it served you well
It
also.
has.
That's
It
great.
has.
Great to hear. Sounds like we've had
Yeah.
a pretty similar journey so far. It's kind of eerie. It's like you're the female version of my experience. And it's like, because I came from, my first job out of school was because of my background in statistics and continuous improvement, Six Sigma, all of that. And I was kind of the guy that brought that in to the company I worked for. It was kind of a manufacturer. And I drifted quickly away. I need to be around people. I'm an introvert who really, really likes and enjoys being around people and needs that. And so sales was a better fit for me. And I kind of drifted into technology from there. And then it's been 20 years ago since I did any of that. But
Yeah.
it's served me very well. Those roots have served me well for sure. This is your story today. So let's keep it rocking.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as my career progressed, it's a lot of work running manufacturing plants, and there's a lot of hours and a lot of stress and all of that. So, over the years, I think there became a point when I wanted to find something different, and I couldn't figure it out. But that was always in the back of my mind for several years. That, I've done this for a long time. I know a lot. There's still a lot I enjoy about it, but I'd really like to do something different. So, then over time, life gets difficult. You spend a lot of time apart, and I had a marriage that broke up, and then that was the year before COVID, and then COVID hit, and we were, of course, essential workers. So, we worked through COVID all day, every day. And
Wow.
with my role, I even started travel. I was traveling for my company during COVID, which was even more challenging.
Yeah.
So, going through COVID, I had got COVID while I was on the road, and had a lot of brain fog issues and just, challenges after that. So a lot of tough times. And then I decided that you can imagine with COVID, there was a lot of change rapidly, and the change was always changing. And so when
The
you're
rules
trying
were
to,
changing and the circumstances were
yes,
changing. And who you could trust was changing. And the
yes,
relationships, you know, I feel like we're in recovery. I've said this a few times on other episodes, just hearing you listen to anybody tell their stories of 2020
hmm
and, the surrounding months on either side, just some heartbreaking, challenging. And I'm so sorry for what you went through. And I think it deserves to be recognized to even this point. Good job, warrior. I mean, look at you.
yeah,
That's why I call us business building warriors. Is stories like this, like, you could rightfully be just curled up in a little ball somewhere, like waiting for it all to go away kind of thing. But you're not. You're plowing forward. And I kind of know the end of the story. The listeners don't yet, but you've built a beautiful business and you've recovered from, the challenges that could have otherwise pinned you down. Not that everything's sunshine and roses now. I'm just saying you've recovered to the point where you can build.
yeah, definitely.
Kudos
Yeah.
to you for that,
Thank
because
you. Yeah, I
any
appreciate
any
it.
business requires work, blood, sweat, tears, sacrifice, risk, and that has to come from somewhere.
Mhm.
And you found it. So good on you. Good
Yeah,
job.
there were days when, I was traveling, and I remember being in a manufacturing plant one day, and one of the workers in the facility had actually passed away from COVID. And then they made that announcement to the plant that day. And I remember going to my hotel room that night and just, kind of wondering, what is this all really about?
Yeah.
It was really tough. So that really wore me out. And so I decided, with the company I was with, to take a different role within our corporate offices versus being on the manufacturing side. And hindsight being 2020, I made that move probably for the wrong reasons. And I found very quickly that I wasn't very well suited, be in the corporate arena and the politics. And it's more
Exactly
about
the word I
how
was
you're
thinking.
perceived versus what you actually do.
You
So
traded production for politics, and that's not an easy leap, right?
yes,
At
yes.
the end of the day,
And
you can see what you've done and made
mhm.
it tangible. Like, look what we accomplished versus the politics and just the jockeying for position and the decision making conflicts. That's just a different world, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So I spent about a year doing that. I knew I needed to give it at least that amount of time, but then made the decision that, I'm going to make a change. And I went back, left that company, briefly went to another company running a manufacturing plant. And the culture was so toxic that one day I just said, you know what, I'm done. It's time. This is my sign. I just need to make this change for myself.
Wow.
And so I knew I had good financial reserves. I'm it's like, okay, I'm done. And so, I went home, and within a few days, I, set up an LLC, got my EIN number. I was focusing on eBay really heavy at that point in time. During the COVID days, I discovered online auctions and I would source for eBay and was having a lot of fun just flipping things there. But sometime in that month of March of 2022, as I was trying to evaluate my life situation, I found your podcast somewhere along the way. Because I had been through every YouTube and podcast on side hustles and passive income and yada yada yada. And on the Amazon side, of course, initially found the private label
guy.
YouTube
Yep.
videos, and it just didn't make sense to me. I'm not creative. I don't know what product I want to do.
No, you're smart.
And the logistics of bringing all that from China, and it's going to be months and months and months.
So I'm like,
I knew it wasn't going to be.
From your background, you had enough business intelligence to go, wait a second, there's a lot of moving parts here. That's a lot of money at risk before I ever hope to see a return someday. Yeah.
Yes.
So many people fall into that trap, and it's tragic. Which is why that's very advanced stuff in our community, private label. So good on you. Well, that's cool that you kind of stumbled around and you were smart enough to kind of check things out at a surface level before you dove all in. So many people go from shiny object to shiny object, diving in and just kind of spreading out their time, attention, and money, and just walk away a year later going, "Oh, it's all a scam," rather than really looking for, and this is the litmus test. You may have heard me say it before, Heather, but I think for folks who are listening to your story today, this is a valuable time to insert a little lesson. If you're looking at business opportunities online or anywhere in the real world, look for a community of people who you can join for free and hang out and talk about the business with people who've been doing it for years successfully, and the challenges and the reality and the transparency, and the leaders are actually doing the business and have been for a long time. If it doesn't have that community with a positive vibe and an abundance mindset, run. And I've just eliminated 98% of the business opportunities you will ever consider, because you should be running from most of them. There's a lot of scary garbage out there. So I'm proud of what we've got. And I'm glad that it resonated with you as you were kind of experimenting through, some different options there.
Yeah, I definitely lurked in the Facebook community and listened to podcasts for probably about a month before I signed up for PAC. And, I'm very conservative when it comes to making a business decision. So, I want to make sure I was in the right place, and signed up for PAC, because again, it was a very, low cost, low risk, money back guarantee if you don't like it. And, then there's just so much content within PAC. So, really, really got in. Enjoyed getting started with that. And, then again, it took me another month to get my first shipment into Amazon in May, but that's, how I got
moving
into
pretty
that.
quick though. You can tell you're a motivated self-starter. Like, hey, I'm in now. Let's go. I talked to someone at our event here a few weeks ago that they bought the Proven Amazon course and hadn't done anything with it in 5 years. They hadn't sent in a shipment yet. Like, I think I'm going kind of slow, kind of joking. Like, yeah, that's about as slow as I've ever heard. But they just love the community, and they feel like they've benefited from the community in many ways, and the creativity and the encouragement, but they hadn't sent a shipment in yet. So a month in, that's pretty fast, actually.
Yeah. Well, as I was contemplating my life journey at that point in time, I still needed to go, right? I couldn't take too much time to figure out my path. So, started with PAC and shipping and shipments. In parallel, I did start doing some consulting work out of state, actually in Indiana. I was driving through Indianapolis twice a week. And so,
oh, really? Did you wave as you went by? Yeah, we're on the south
I
side
did.
here.
Yeah. And, certainly I had about 12 hours of window time a week to listen to podcasts. So between podcasts and audiobooks and your content and others, and that I just kept absorbing that Amazon information while I was building my business.
Yeah. That's great. So the consulting had to do with your previous line of work, I take it.
It did. Someone that I had worked for previously had a need for some continuous improvement help in a plant that was struggling a little bit. And so I came in to do that, and then did an interim plant manager role for them as well when they had a gap. So it was, good to do that and, help out somebody in need and work while I'm building my business.
I'm a huge fan of the consultant model. I think it just it reflects so nicely. And we encourage people in the Amazon space even to very quickly transition into calling themselves an expert and letting people know they're available. And the paid gigs that come your way, the brands that need assistance, There's no body or board or certification process out there. You just say, yeah, I've sold on Amazon. I know the landscape. I'm in a community of people that live, eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff. And you're a brand that's trying to make and sell stuff. So here I am. Let me help. And that can turn into a viable business very quickly, very early on. We have some people that kind of start there. They only sell a few things themselves on Amazon. They understand the landscape. And so since you mentioned consulting, I thought I'd throw that out there, just another way to monetize this journey. But yeah, that's
I'm
great.
definitely open to those options. I have no desire to go back to a regular W-2 9 to 5 job, or
I haven't missed it once. Our journeys
7
are
to 6
similar.
job.
I'm 20 years out now,
Mhm.
and haven't once woke up in the morning and thought, man, I wish I could just go to work and get a paycheck instead of doing this. Not one, not even for a briefest of moments have I had that thought. Haven't missed it. And I made a more desperate leap than it sounds like you did, financially speaking.
Mhm.
We were pretty tight, but I was all in. So here we are, a year and a half into your journey. As of today, as we're recording this, you've made some great progress. But let's keep your story going. So you sent in your first shipment. How'd that go for you? Was it Replens? Were you following the Replens model?
Yeah, I started off, based on the PAC course. I had some
Good.
Walgreen branded, CVS branded, Target branded, a few things like that I would find, and the occasional clearance item. That wasn't going to be my model, but you want to pick up the $20 bills when you find them, right?
Exactly.
And just kind of learning, and went through that struggle that so many people do of you're new, and I'm gated and everything, and I can't find any ASINs, and it just gets better with time, and you've got to learn Keepa, and you gotta work with it more, and Brian and Robin's content is great for that. But yeah, just starting with the basics of that, and then I was traveling almost every week during that summer. So when I had a long drive, I would like at that time I had a couple of my first ASINs were from Rural King. And so I would stop at multiple Rural Kings between St. Louis and Indiana and pick up a few Replens either on the way there, or on the way home, and, just made it work. But, and then in July, I hit my first $10,000 month. So,
okay, you started in March, April, May, June, July. 4 months later, you're hitting 10,000.
Yeah.
you went after it. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a real benchmark for us around here when someone hits 10,000 in sales, because it's kind of like, how to use, you mentioned Brian and Robin Joy, how to ride a two-wheel vehicle now. We could change that bike into a moped or maybe even a motorcycle. Like, how to balance. You got this thing. You've validated it. You know what it looks like. Now let's just build a bigger machine and maybe put someone else on that machine even. So that's fantastic. Yeah, 10,000 within 4 months is really getting after it. And you were working another gig at the same time. So you were really you were multitask mode for sure.
I even, some of the weeks I would take my little tote with my Rolo printer and my labels and poly bags, and did some shipments from the hotel. I would source on the way up and source there and send a shipment out while I was there. So, I was doing it all. And, but I knew, my consulting gig was only going to have a certain amount of time. And so in August, I made the decision, to start with coaching, just to help me get there faster, because it was, by that point in time, I really realized that I don't want to find another job. I had done some interviewing, looked at some things, and just didn't find the right thing. And I kept coming back to, I don't want to do this. So, started with coaching in August, and being on the road, it was really hard to get enough hours to source manually, and get enough ASINs to keep building, building, building. So, I definitely wanted to get into the online arbitrage. And so Tori Knudsen is my coach, and she's wonderful. And she really helped. She taught me TA and got me going down that path. That was such a game changer for me, because then I could start some scans in TA in the morning before I went to the plant, go to the plant and work all day, come back to my hotel room at night, do some online sourcing and buying, have it delivered to my home, and then I'd get home on the weekend and do a shipment. So that was really a game changer. So, with Tori, and then, then in that by October, I was at 20K a month, and then was, between that 20 and 25 through Q4. And I didn't go crazy. Like Q4, I did a lot of FBM, of some seasonal things. Black Friday, I bought all this and then sold at FBM out of my house. But I didn't go crazy with toys or Christmas items, etc. Tried to stick as much Replens as I could, with some of the bonus, great sale inventory that I could turn.
Again, it's hard to walk past those $20 and $50 bills just sitting there during peak seasons like that, right? But that's not the primary model. Yeah, and
Right.
It doesn't scale. It's feast or famine. You don't know what you're going to get. But yeah, so that's. I tend to advise new students, especially, don't be too distracted by the seasonal, the sale, the clearance. Like that's just going to pull you off course and get you busy, run on that hamster wheel. Kind of cranking out, a little bit of profit for your time, but you're not building a system that can be automated and turned over to other people. You want to keep your eye on that prize, ideally, and that's where I kind of see you heading. With your story so far. You mentioned TA, which is tactical arbitrage. We'll stick a link in the show notes. We've got a good discount on that software. But did you go through the OA Simplified training? Did Tori take you through that or expose you to that by any chance?
Yes, I have been through that training. I worked with Tori first, and then went through the OA Simplified training. So,
Did you find that helpful? Because that's where they really dove in, or had Tori kind of already explained that to you?
Tori had done a lot of that with me, but it was more icing on the cake going through that training. So, and I'm using tactical arbitrage plus technical expander,
right.
Which Leah really talked about in the OA Simplified. So, those are my tools of choice today.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just want to make sure people know that that's one of the modules inside the Proven Amazon course. If you're listening today, you're like, what's OA Simplified? That's where we teach online arbitrage, online sourcing strategies. And as Heather just mentioned, rather than going into stores, she found her schedule was more accommodating to shop, at night online, that sort of thing. Great benefits to doing both. But when it comes to online arbitrage, the OA Simplified module inside the Proven Amazon course is fantastic. It takes a little bit of time to study and learn. You don't pick it up in a couple hours. You got to kind of dig in, experiment. But once you understand TA and those OA strategies, it can be a beautiful thing. And many people swear by it in our community. Actually, on my team, we don't do a whole lot of that, though. We just don't. We don't use TA at all. But I would say on our coaching team, which is 60 coaches, probably 15 or 20 of them love TA, swear by it. The rest of us are like, take it or leave it. It's kind of that way with a lot of tools, though, in our community. The only tool that's not that way, and you mentioned it, Heather, is Keepa. And across the board, 100% top to bottom, if you talk to if you got the 1,000 top students in our community together and said, do you use Keepa? They would all say, absolutely yes. Are you kidding me? So that's unquestionable. So go back, if you don't know what Keepa is, you're listening to the show today, go back and listen to episode 369 of this podcast, 369. It explains why Keepa is so vital to the process. And I'm sure Heather uses it all day, every day, just like the rest of us, to make good inventory decisions. It gives you details you can't get elsewhere. It's the bottom line. But all right, to continue your story, so you're hitting 20K. I mean, you hit 10K for the first time a few months in. And then a few months later, you're hitting 20, and then it's Q4, so you're finding some bonus items that you're flipping pretty fast. It's pretty easy to make money month of November, December, especially. You can flip a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So you tapped into that, but once reality set back in January, February of this year, we're talking just a few months ago at this point. How did 2023 kick off for you?
January was still strong. I was still at the same sales level through January. Also in January, I started using a prep center. So one thing Tori is really good about as my coach is, when I'm dragging my feet on going to the next thing that I need to do in my business, she's very good at challenging me and pushing me. So
that's what a coach does.
Yeah. Yes. And so started with the prep center in January. February, I saw a drop in sales, primarily because then I had to make that shift, right? If I'm going to use a prep center, I've got to get enough units to them. So the OA sourcing has to be a bigger priority than some of the RA sourcing I was doing. So to get that prep center, filled up and running smoothly with, good volume every week, it was a, shift in how I was sourcing and how much time I was devoting to what sourcing methods. Because today I source manually.
When you say manual, you're saying retail. When you say
or just
outsource
not using
manually,
tactical arbitrage. It could be either retail or
or
online,
online.
but
Right. Okay.
manually sourcing using Keepa product finder, for instance,
Mhm.
if I'm on the computer, whether I'm storefront stalking or I'm searching a brand or I'm, digging deeper into a specific website that I want to source, I'll, use Keepa product finder and use that to help in that sourcing. Or I can source in a store too. I'm not as big. I don't love spending a day in a store. I'm horrifically awful at taking pictures and then coming home and actually opening up the pictures and doing the research at home with pictures. So
Right.
um,
Well, that happens to be my favorite way. Like I just
mhm.
send me a picture from a store shelf and make sure I can see the barcode and see the ounces, see the size of the item, whatever. Like I can just sit there and multitask and find replens like crazy. That happens to be my favorite way to do it. I'm kind of
Yeah.
old school in that regard, but I guess, but yeah. So people just, I love how different personalities and different styles. There's so many different ways to find great replens
Mhm.
that yeah, you can really let your personality kind of dictate your schedule and personality and how you like to spend your time researching. Some people like to get out. These are the strangest people in our community to me. The ones that kind of like on the edge of the bell curve, right? Are the ones that's like, I'd love just to go to the store in 5 hours in the same store and just
Yeah.
like what? The manager looks at you 40 times and you just don't care. You got your headphones on and like, yeah, I'm making some shopping decisions and then put the headphones back on and go. I don't get that, but some people love it. So
I,
yeah, all
I do
different
like a
types.
break, getting out in the store, but I do it differently. I already have my list ready to go when I go out into the store. My local
Mhm.
grocery store, I've got a number of replens there. So, if I'm tired of being on the computer for several hours that day, then, I'll take my daily shipments to the post office and, I'll go to the grocery store and source, but I already know what I'm getting with the
Right.
exception of I'll check out the clearance aisle. But
Yeah. And
I do like a variety.
we've got a shared spreadsheet for our team. So there's like 8 of us. Anytime you're out
Mhm.
shopping, getting stuff for your personal, whatever, here's the shared Google Doc that has what we need right now and which stores it's predominantly at. Like, oh yeah, they've got those back in stock now. Clear the shelf. We need 24 of those, and they've got
Mhm.
18 here. I'm grabbing them all. Right. Put it on the spreadsheet. Now everyone knows we've got a few heading in. It's a pretty cool system that we've developed over the years to just kind of. I like it lifestyle integration of the sourcing, where
Mhm.
it's super flexible. You always got to be chipping away at it, but it doesn't have to be the same routine every day. Like you said, you get tired of the computer. I'm going to hop in the car, go do some shopping, and pick up some of my replens on my list while I'm out. To it's it's really cool how it just kind of all starts to integrate and blend. I enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Well, keep your story going. So you started using Prep Center. It slowed you down a
Mhm.
little bit in February, which is just a few months ago as we're recording this.
Yeah.
So how'd you
But
swing out of that into March?
by March, I jumped back up. And so, you know, sales went up. And then, May and June, I've been hovering just underneath that $30,000 a month. I've got 30 days where I exceed 30,000, but, my calendar month isn't
Calendar
quite
month.
there. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that's been good. And then it seems like I have a pattern of I hit a number and then I plateau there for 3 months. And then I hit another number and I plateau there for 3 months. So I'm in like the third month of where I'm at. So hopefully
Yeah.
next month is the big jump.
Oh,
So
that's very typical. You kind of step back, you automate, you use some new resources. Maybe you build your team. A couple questions that are pressing to me right now is it still just you and the prep center, or do you have other help at this point? Anyone else doing some of the legwork?
I do have a VA that I'm using. And then I
Good.
also have a shared VA with another group. So
Okay.
it's not a leads list per se, but we have a VA that's sourcing just for us. And it's a
Yeah.
smaller group, if you will.
Those kind of
Um,
relationships can become very valuable. Yeah.
mhm,
Just kind of the organic, make a point of contact, have the conversation, start doing this together. People will share ASINs in small groups,
mhm.
right? Like go pick these. I get texts all the time and send texts all the time to different folks that I'm close with. Like, hey, yeah, if you happen to have this store near you, go clear these out. And it's a great ASIN right now. That sort of thing. Yeah, so it can be very valuable. I'm glad you.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the great things about the Proven Conference is, last year when I went, I met a really good friend and we continued the business relationship through. And then this year was my second year and, made several good relationships this time. And so now we've got a mastermind group that's going really well and some other smaller groups that, and we're texting and messaging back and forth and, helping each other build our businesses. So, that's really a great part of the community is that networking that you can do at the Proven Conference.
And, some might think, oh, that's a nice icing on the cake, some good friends and people to do the business with. I'm like, no, that's actually vital if you're going to survive. Having watched this for a long time, the lone wolves tend to drift away, get frustrated, and end up not having anyone they can lean on when things are weird, strange, or difficult. And they kind of drift away. But the people who very intentionally are relationship focused, not only do they survive, but they tend to be the ones that really rise to the top. And I hear it in leader after leader, coach after coach on our team. Like, yeah, the mastermind, I couldn't have done it without the group, without the friends I made at the conference, without the people that I've reached out to in those weekly Zooms. And sometimes we don't even talk about business. It's just, having other people who get it and who are on the same journey, that camaraderie. And it sounds like it's really paid off for you. You found some great connections. I love that you gave some kudos to the conference as well. If you don't mind, just spend a minute. You talked about some of the people you connected with there. Does anything specifically, we didn't prepare for this, but does anything stand out to you from our recent conference that maybe changed the way you're going to do things or some takeaways?
I think for me this year, I was much more, I knew what I wanted out of the conference, where last year, my first year, I was so green that, my just eyes wide open and absorbing everything. And this year I was very intentional. I made sure that I talked with, almost all of the vendors at the tables and, got some things from those sources. I got more out of the classes because I knew I had a better idea of what I wanted to learn and from whom. Just some great nuggets that came out of some of those sessions. And there's just some really strong people in the community, and again, they're willing to share what they know. So whether it was bundling or the OA or different topics that it was. I got a lot more out of the content this year, in addition to just all of the relationship building, which I think the relationship building is the most important part of it. But yeah, I came out of the conference with, here's my goals. And so I've got several things that I want to do, but
action items for sure. Yeah. I think we all walk away with a crazy list. It takes us about 2 weeks to recover from a conference, just the stuff that, we got to go start doing this now. I've got to talk to that person as soon as possible, kind of stuff that just kind of fills, but it's all such great stuff. Yeah. You plan to come to Orlando in 2024?
Yeah. I'm already signed up. So.
Are you? Awesome. Outstanding. Good. Yeah. I couldn't believe we had over 200 people at the event say, yeah, I'm coming next year. I'm paying right now. Let's go. So we had a special offer at the event. And I was hoping, internally, I was hoping 30 to 50 people would help us kind of get the budget rolling for next year. Over 200 people signed up. Our VIP is nearly sold out before we even released the tickets. So it was pretty awesome, the response. I'm glad you're going to be there. So the dates are May 23rd through 25th, 2024 in Orlando, Florida. Get to theprovenconference.com to get details. Yeah, Heather, I've heard from so many people who are there that have locked in or fully intend as soon as tickets go on sale. It was a great event. And thanks for giving us a little feedback, your perspective on it. Another question that we can't let too much time slide before I hit is we haven't talked at all about your margins. I want to make sure that we're real accurate on, how's that looking? How profitable is this business? So there's some great sales figures. And if you're following the training, I know about where your numbers should be, typically based on averages, but how are your numbers looking as far as profitability?
Yeah, they're never as good as you want them to be. Most months I'm typically, after all expenses, and I've got a heavy software burden. I know I have a lot of tools, and I like my tools, and that's so I've got a heavy burden. I have, I use Jeff Schick for legal support. It helps me with my IP claims, et cetera. So, my margins are usually between 14 and 18% after all expenses, prep center fees, et cetera.
Right.
So I'd like that to be a little higher. I do need to do some trimming of my tools, but I know the tools are necessary to help me.
That's not bad at all. I mean, you're putting, 5,000-6,000 in the bank. after everything's said and done. But a lot of those are fixed costs that aren't going to go up as you scale. They're
Right.
Keepa costs the same whether you're selling $1 million a month or you're selling $500 a month. It doesn't Keepa's the same price. So a lot of these tools are kind of it's this foundation, and so you are going to see your profit, your net margin climb as you scale to 50, 60, 80. But you're also going to see it kind of level out again because you're going to be adding a team as you free up your time. So the way my business runs is I'm thrilled with 15, 20% net margin. That's phenomenal because I don't lift a finger.
Right.
My team's doing everything. And I get to check in on the process, check the numbers, make suggestions, tweak the training, tweak the tools here and there. But it's completely hands-free, which is Replens allows you to build a model that does that. Every piece of it can be handed off to someone of competence who just kind of does the same thing every day with competence and accuracy. And you've built a beautiful machine. It kind of runs itself, including sourcing new ASINs constantly. It's a beautiful system. That's what I really love about it. That's what resonated with me. I love systems. I love, you put in X, you get out X times 3. We've built a beautiful system, and that's what this is. So those margins, I think that's phenomenal. As long as you're okay with it, that really is a lot of stability. Yeah, like you said, it could be higher. The price of some of the software you're using, like TA, is not cheap, for example, but it sounds like it's paying for itself. So I think you're just on my observation is you just keep finding more ASINs. You're going to be at 50, 60, 80 a month before you know it. And the expenses aren't going to go up a whole lot.
Right.
That you got some nice numbers now.
Yeah, my target is to be at that 50 to 60 range by the end of the year and sustain that through past Q4,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, depending on what types of products you're getting, and part of the beauty, as you know, Heather, part of the beauty of Replens is it's boring stuff people buy year round. That's the beauty of it. So there's no reason to suspect 2024 January is going to be a dip. It's going to sustain right just like it did this year. Boring stuff keeps on selling. What's your plans for Q4 this year? You're going to get into toys, a little seasonal type stuff to give it a little boost, or are you going to just be slow and steady, plow forward?
90% slow and steady, right? I dabble in a little bit of toys, but I'll do some toys and games that I can probably flip FBM and just do a little bit of that. But it's interesting going through this process because, as I've listened to probably 150 or 200 of your podcasts, thanks to my drive to and from Indiana, I've heard you say a lot of things over and over again, but until I really experience them, it's like, oh, and one of those light bulbs is in Q4, everything just sells more. So that shampoo that you sell 10 units of a month now, you're going to sell 20 of them or 15 of them a month in Q4. So, I think making sure I have a good plan to ramp up inventory so that I have enough, I'm not stocking out of those bread and butter ASINs, if you will. Then on top of that, with the online sourcing, making sure I'm taking full advantage of those opportunities that are there. But just having enough, a wider breadth of ASINs, and then making sure the inventory is deep enough on those.
Yeah.
Category wise, I know you usually ask this, but my top categories, and I was a little surprised when I really got into the numbers in Inventory Lab, between grocery, beauty, and health and beauty, those are my top 3 categories. And my grocery was a little higher than I thought it would be. That's primary, my RA stuff. But, over 50% of my business is in those 3 categories.
Wow.
So, So I do think one of the things I want to do is try to diversify that a little bit more.
Sure. You do any merchant fulfilled grocery?
A little bit. Usually, if it's something that is a little inside of the date range, then I'll FBM it. I did a ton of seasonal beverage kind of products in Q4 last year that I just couldn't get enough of. I would do the BOPUS model where, I buy online, pick up in store, and I would, run to every Target and pick up this ASIN, and I could sell them as fast as I could, but there wasn't enough time to send them into FBA. So, I'm not afraid of that at all. I've got daily eBay packages. I sell in Walmart a little bit. Now I started that in April. So there's packages going out every day. So if there's a few more, I'm okay with that.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, for those who aren't afraid to play around in grocery and they're willing to do a little bit of merchant fulfill, I've heard from a handful of people, including someone at the conference who was doing hundreds of thousands of dollars per month of groceries, merchant fulfilled, just hitting the sales hard because they had an advantage. They could get their inventory listed so much faster than any of the FBA sellers. So they're getting in and out of ASINs quickly. Not really a true Replens model, but it just shows how expansive these concepts are once you understand them. So when Kroger has a buy one, get three free, whatever, crazy special, you just send out a team of shoppers, get as many of you can get your hands on that thing, and you list them that day, and you've sold them by the end of the week because your price is so great on the hottest ASINs for those products. And then you're done with it within a week or two. And then all the FBA inventory shows up 2 weeks later where everyone like, oh, a sale. I'm going to send this in FBA. Well, now you and all 80 of your friends did the same thing and it's too late. So it's kind of a timing, get in, get out thing, but it sounds like you're comfortable playing with that a little bit. So maybe just as an idea for you, it doesn't have to just be Q4 on the soda with Santa Claus face on it is flying off the shelf. It can be year round if you're hitting the best sales, and all those sales are cyclical. The same stuff goes on sale every 3 months at the same stores kind of thing. And once you know those patterns, that's a whole business model right there. Get a team of shoppers and that can be automated. Anything can be automated and systemized, it gets me excited. And so that model's fun. I think we might be creating some content around that concept as well as the discontinued products. We got some content coming on that. That's an exciting model. If you know what's about to be discontinued, and you see the hot ASINs that discontinued product is heading towards, and you anticipate buy and hold for a couple months, suddenly you're the only one with inventory on a really smoking hot ASIN. Yeah, that's fun too. So those kind of concepts, again, it's so expansive, but that's the stuff that as your time frees up, you can decide, do I want to snap that strategy into my business and, assign someone on my team to focus on that? And that's the kind of stuff that's coming in your future, I think.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely ready for a shopper. So, that may be one of the next things I do because I definitely have my normal replens, but I do have those sales plans that my grocery store has this sale every 4 weeks and I have to buy a lot. And my mother came into town last weekend. And after we went to, 5 of the same grocery store and bought the same cart full of stuff, and cleared the shelves in each of those stores, she just kind of gave me that look. The people who don't know anything about Amazon, they give you that look like, are you crazy? So I'm ready to, get a shopper and let someone else help me with that.
Yeah. And as a systems person, you've run manufacturing plants. And when I'm teaching people to start to think this way, this is instinctual to you, Heather. I'm not teaching you anything new, but anytime something is repetitive, you need to build a system around it and let someone specialize in doing just that and stop doing it yourself as a leader. If it's repetitive and you're doing the same thing every day at the same time, the same way, okay, that needs to be somebody else's job. We need a system for that. The guy in charge of the company isn't the one that does anything repetitive every day. That's a job. You show up, you do it with excellence. The guy at the top is, you're running your own company. You're the one that has to adjust to the winds of change and anticipate. And, that's your role, not okay, got to go hit the 7 stores. Yeah, you need a shopper. 100% echo that sentiment that you just expressed of, that's repetitive stuff. It's kind of mindless stuff. And you can say, oh, I'm listening to my podcast and it's good time, but paying someone else to do it with excellence and to really make it, that's their job now. They'll get it done so much better, faster, cheaper than you ever will. And it frees up your mind space to tackle the bigger issues. Absolutely. But my first hire, and you've already, just to be clear, and you've already kind of covered this, but when people say, hey, Jim, what's your first hire? And you've heard me say this before, Heather, should be someone that goes out and finds new ASINs. That's where your money goes first. If you got some profit and you want to put it back into your business, where do I put it? You don't hire somebody to put tape on boxes, in my opinion. You hire someone to go find more ASINs. Get someone else trained on finding good winning inventory. That way you're hiring people that find more margin for your business instead of just creating convenience for your schedule, which sounds like you've already done.
Yeah, I have. I would, just add the caveat to that you have to make sure that yourself as a seller, how to source really well first, because
thank you for clarifying.
My experience with a VA is that it's still a continuing training process.
Absolutely.
She's had a certain amount of training, but I've got to be able to source well first so that I can teach her
Yes.
how I want her to source and different methods and keep expanding her.
No one's going to care about that part of your business more than you do. No one's going to outperform you more than you're capable of in that part of your business. You've got to be the one driving that, hitting that home. I'd like to think that any given day you could take anyone on my team and put them head to head with me on finding winning replens, and I would win the competition every time. Yeah, I've stayed at the cutting edge of what's a good ASIN, what meets our qualification standards, where do we find them, how do I find more of them? If you're not good at that, there's not going to be anyone on your team that's better than you are at that.
Yeah, I agree.
I haven't met that business yet. A lot of people think, yeah, I just want to push a few buttons and automate it. And some of these services even popped up. Heather's like, yeah, you give us 30, 40, $50,000. We'll set up your whole business, including finding profitable inventory, et cetera. Like, no, run. There's a reason why there's no community of excited, happy, successful people who have followed that model to success on Amazon, because it doesn't work. Right?
I met someone when I was doing consulting. And this guy's like, I have a friend and he wants to get into Amazon. And so I talked to this guy, and he was talking to one of these companies, and I gave him that advice, just run. You need to learn to do it yourself. Gave him the PAT course information, et cetera. And I'm not sure what path he ever ended up on, but I hope he didn't go down that one. So
yeah, that whole just give us $30,000 to $50,000, we're going to do it for you. Those companies rise and fall so fast. It's such an easy thing to sell, and it's virtually impossible to deliver, to the point where maybe 1 out of 100 customers end up with something, close to a decent investment. The rest are just upset, angry, and wish they'd never touched it. It's really bad odds. It's worse odds than jumping into private label as a new seller. I'll tell you that. At least some of them, 5% or so of those guys end up making some money with the done for you. It can't be higher than 1% success rate for paid client. It's disastrous, because the point we're making, you got to get good at finding winning inventory. And that's where your roots, Heather, as an eBay seller really come into play. It's the eBay days. It's like, not everything's necessarily going to sell. You use some instincts, you use some tools, you want to you don't just go buy everything. Not everything is going to sell. So we're used to that process of kind of being picky about our inventory. And we know, as we've said for 20 years around here, you make your money when you buy your inventory. You're not going to market your way out of stupid decisions. So you better be careful what you're buying. And you're the one at the top of the business being very cautious about what inventory makes its way into our door, because we got to be confident we can flip that or at least get our money back. And that's where the Replens model has been the most beautiful model I've ever seen in my 20 years plus of e-commerce. At your worst case scenario is you can at least get your money back. Not so with eBay. There's plenty of things I bought at eBay yard sales that ended up in my garage and never turned into money. They ended up in my own yard sale selling for half the price I paid, right? It happens all the time. But the beauty of Replens is you're fairly confident, like, this thing's moving. And I'm pretty sure my worst case scenario over 60 days is break even. So let's go. Let's play with this thing. See if it pops.
And definitely, what you teach about an inch deep and a mile wide has helped me a lot over this past year and a half, when I've been, learning as you learn as you go with this, right? And not every buy is a good one. And, you're going to have some of those where you have to, sell it at break even because it didn't move. But, you get better at that over time. And then, just to reemphasize Keepa again, I don't buy any single thing without looking at a Keepa chart. No matter what my sourcing method, where I find it. If I can't see a Keepa chart, I won't buy it.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. We've learned, and you learned to see some creative things that maybe the novice can't see on Keepa over time, but 100% rely on Keepa to make our inventory buying decisions. And we never go more than a month deep on anything ever. There's no reason to. No reason to take that risk. But what if the discount's really good, Jim? I don't care. I don't care what the discount is. I'm not going to buy 6 months worth of anything, because a few weeks in, here comes a bigger, badder seller than you buying 10,000 units for pennies on the dollar what you paid. And there you are sitting on inventory that you're going to struggle to get rid of. So we never go more than a month's worth of anything ever. Is there anything on your mind, any questions for me, anything on your list that we didn't hit that you'd like to get out there captured on this episode?
I think one thing I would like to just kind of emphasize for some of the newer sellers and people that are getting started is, just move forward, go buy the product, send it in, see what happens. You're going to learn as you go, stick with that inch deep, mile wide, and you can make little mistakes along the way and learn. I think if anything, one of my weaknesses has been, at least in my mind, that sometimes I don't make the move quick enough, whether that's been a VA or a prep center or, certain things. So, just keep pushing forward and you'll be surprised how much it compounds as you go. And, another point is, I think if you are going to get into OA, you've got to take some time with those tools. I would say it took me a good 3 months before I felt like I was competent, with tactical arbitrage. And don't give up too quickly. I see a lot of people that will get into whatever model you're doing. And if it doesn't work in 5 minutes, then you move on to the next thing. But
Right.
selling on Amazon it's a lot of work. It's easy in concept, but it's a lot of hard work. And you've got to be very disciplined about it. One of the things that works for me, because to me, my main thing is sourcing. So am I meeting my spend goals so that I can get those sales? And for me to do that, I have to be very disciplined. So for me, that means I get out of bed, I get a cup of coffee, and I go sit at the computer and I start sourcing. And, I do that for several hours. If I pass my spend goal by 9 o'clock, then I go do something else. If I don't, then I sit there till lunchtime and I keep
Oh, so
working.
you do take that
So
approach. I love that.
I
Many
do.
successful sellers do. I'm going to spend $1,000 on good inventory
Hmm.
before I get up from this
Hmm.
chair or before I come home. Right. So yeah,
Yes.
it's interesting to me. I never really took that approach. I'd more look at at a week, like, have we spent enough this week yet? Okay, time to buy some more inventory. But it's been a while since I had to think through either. Cause I've got my team running that part of my business,
Mhm.
but we're constantly finding new ASINs every day. That part I am committed to. How many new ASINs did we find today? That's a metric I really track.
Mhm. For me, I can tend to be a procrastinator if I don't make sure that I'm very self disciplined. So that's why I have a daily goal for myself. And it doesn't mean I'll buy bad inventory just to make my number. Some days I walk away and I haven't met that goal, but I need to go on and do the other tasks. But for the week, I need to make it up. But if I
Right.
just do a weekly goal for me, I can tend to push it off and push it off. And then it's Sunday night and I need to spend $5,000 and, it's
Mhm.
not there. So
Yeah.
if I were managing a team doing that, then I'm a little more flexible as far as weekly goals.
Yeah. Those are great tips. I think this is a very practical list that you've put together. And I didn't mean to interrupt it. Is there anything else on that list? Any other points you wanted to make or anything else to discuss as we wrap this one up?
No, I think I'm good, Jim.
Yeah, well, great. This was a tremendous episode. Do you ever feel like you're on a leadership track around here in our community? Has that thought ever occurred to you?
Definitely, over time, I could definitely see myself being a coach at some point in time. I'm not ready yet, but, down the road, that could be an opportunity. And I just love it, especially with the networking. And I love helping others. So it's great when we can put our heads together and we can help each other through problems. And I do really enjoy that. That's probably the favorite part of my career is leading teams. And I had a lot of training in servant leadership, which I've heard you talk about a lot. And
Maxwell?
yeah, so definitely just sitting by myself at a computer is not my end goal. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's exciting for me to hear that because I think that's the track you're on. Very competent, and there's something about leaders who have been crushed at some point by
mhm,
just whatever life crushes you with, and have
mhm,
come through to continue building. Like, give me 10 of those people any day, and I'll
yeah,
change the world because this full of confidence and accomplishment and never really been crushed leaders, they're a little unpredictable and sometimes it becomes about them and they can drift easily into ego territory. But the servant leader, like you mentioned, putting others first, sacrificial, and then getting crushed at some point by circumstances beyond your control. In many cases, other times it was mistakes. Doesn't really matter, but just having felt the pain of how hard it can be, and then stepping back into achievement and leading, like that overcomer mentality mixed with a servant-minded leader. And something I've been studying, Heather. You'll appreciate this, and hopefully some of the listeners will as well. But I'm pretty sure there's no difference between serving well and leading well. It's the same thing.
mhm,
There's no delineation. The words are interchangeable almost, right? So if
right.
for people who that starts to make sense, like I want to be on team with those people. Who
Mhm.
gets credit for this? What we just accomplished? No one cares, right? It serves us all well. Let's move forward. Whose idea was this anyway? Doesn't matter. Who cares? the tide raises all ships. Let's go. Let's keep cranking out good content. Let's keep helping each other out. Let's keep growing.